In a few days' time, on Thursday, the 8th of August, there will come into being the strongest coalition which has been established in the recent past in our country. It is a decisive development in our political landscape. It is a coalition that is founded upon the bedrock of principle, values. The Honorable Sajith Premadasa is committed to the concept of government under the law, not above the law. His administration will not impose on the country autocratic rule, arrogant, insensitive, and overbearing. Above all, we will have deep respect for institutions in this country, principally the judiciary, which is, in the final analysis, the instrument through which the basic rights of our people are guaranteed and enforced. In the recent past, we have seen an unparalleled onslaught on the judiciary of this country. A unique experience. Never before has a president of Sri Lanka come into the chamber of parliament and denigrated the judiciary in this way. He has propounded the startling theory that judgments of the Supreme Court can be reversed by Parliament, because Parliament exercises judicial power. An astonishing theory that Parliament exercises judicial power directly. Does Parliament have the capability to do that? To examine judgments of the Supreme Court, to modify them, overturn them at will. He has got government backbenchers to come to Parliament and move resolutions urging that judges of the Supreme Court should be brought before the Privileges Committee of Parliament. Duress and intimidation of every conceivable form. This has been the consistent practice of this government during the last few months. What is the government's quarrel with the judiciary? Why is there this great desire to humiliate the judiciary? The answer is very clear. Today it is only the Supreme Court of this country that is preventing the perpetration of colossal frauds, highway robbery, insatiable greed. The only institution that is standing in the way is the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. This is what accounts for the firm resolve of the government to get the Supreme Court out of the way, to make it impotent, so that the government can forge ahead undaunted and unimpeded with their plans regarding the pillage and plunder of the resources of our people. A landmark judicial decision of which we can all be proud is an interim order of the Supreme Court 4 days ago with regard to the VFS scam. All the companies in the tourism sector went to the Supreme Court with a strong complaint. They said that during COVID, the tourism sector collapsed entirely. Now, with great difficulty, they are trying to raise their head, to breathe vigor and vitality into what was then a moribund industry. This is an industry which provides livelihoods directly and indirectly for hundreds of thousands of our people. As far as the issuing of visas was concerned, everything was going smoothly. There was absolutely no reason for any change whatsoever. The work connected with the background information for issuing visas was done by a Sri Lankan organization, Telecom, together with Mobitel. At that time, the fee that was charged for issuing a visa was $1. Now the cabinet made a decision to hand over this responsibility to VFS, another company, which was charging $18.50. Earlier, this service, the same service, no change, this identical service was secured for $1. Now, $18.50. Now, are tourists going to continue coming here? Just imagine the amount of money that is involved in the difference between the two. Tourism today is operating in a highly competitive environment. There are many other potential destinations which are attractive to tourists. So is this a way to strengthen and stimulate tourism in this country despite the protestations of the government? The Supreme Court intervened to stop this scam. They had prevented the implementation of the cabinet decision for the time being. They issued a stay order. Until the conclusion of these proceedings, the cabinet decision could not be carried into effect. And the order of the Supreme Court was to revert to the previous position. That is, hand this back to Telecom and Mobitel for a much, much lesser price. Apart from the money aspect, there are also security considerations involved. The VFS will have access to sensitive, confidential information relating to citizens of our country and also information that will impinge detrimentally on the country's security. All that was stopped by nobody else, no other institution than the Supreme Court of this land. So the Supreme Court has become a thorn in the side of a corrupt government. It is the only restraint that is effectively operative today against frauds of unparalleled proportions. Now what is going to happen to this 1750 difference? Stuff your pockets, make hay while the sun shines. The sky is the limit. No constraint, no inhibition of any kind. Go ahead. That is the clear message. However, subject to one indispensable condition, that condition has to be complied with, otherwise no opportunities for thievery and fraud. What is the condition? You must support the candidacy of Ranil Wickremesinghe for the presidential election. Subject to that, open season, everything else is entirely permissible. Now there is no occasion for surprise at all. True to form, very much a consistent, recurring pattern. This happened in 2015, the central bank scam. The only difference is one of scale. The VFS fraud is of far greater proportions. What happened in 2015? Mr. Wickremesinghe was then Prime Minister in the Yahapalana government. The first appointment that he made as Prime Minister was to appoint his friend Mr. Arjuna Mahendran as Governor of the Central Bank. There were shrill protests in Parliament. For a very good reason. Mr. Mahendran had no connection, no nexus with this country whatsoever. He was not a citizen. He was not a dual citizen. He was a foreigner. Now the question was asked, it's in Hansard, it is recorded in Hansard, and The proceedings can be read even today in Hansard. The fear was expressed in no uncertain terms. What happens if there is a problem and Mr. Mahendran gets on the next plane and leaves the country? What can be done about it? What is the remedy? Mr. Wickramasinghe in Parliament gave a very clear and explicit answer which is recorded in that stark form in Hansard. He said he is giving a personal guarantee. He accepts full responsibility and accountability for the appointment of his friend Mr. Mahendran. Impeccable character, the highest possible standards of integrity, and he takes responsibility. He will guarantee that nothing untoward is going to happen. That was a personal guarantee given by the Prime Minister at that time to the Sri Lankan Parliament. What happened? The worst fears were regrettably confirmed. Mr. Mahendran left the country. It was then said, what's all the fuss about? He has gone to attend the wedding of a close friend. He's going to be away for a few days. He's going to come back to the country. Absolutely no reason for consternation. The wedding has taken 9 years. 9 years. And Mr. Mahendran is flourishing in a foreign land. That has been the unfortunate history of this matter. Now, here are two scams separated from each other by a space of 9 years. But there is a very prominent similarity between these two situations. A similarity which is apparent on the face of the transactions. The scam in 2015 took place a few months ahead of a parliamentary election. The greater scam with regard to the VFS, the visa fraud, is taking place in 2024, a few months before a presidential election. The aim and objective is precisely the same: to generate enormous funds to be used in the election campaign. It does not require much perception to figure out that that is the aim and purpose of the fraud that is now being embarked upon, which, thanks to the Supreme Court of this land, has been halted. But for the Supreme Court, this would have gone ahead without hindrance, without impediment. Now we are going to do something about this. This is not a situation which can be accepted with equanimity. It must be noted that the magnitude, the implications of the VFS scam were first raised in Parliament by none other than the Honourable Sajith Premadasa, leader of the opposition. When he forms his government on the 22nd of September, one of our priority objectives will be to introduce a constitutional amendment, no less, to strengthen the hand of the Bribery and Corruption Commission. Its powers, functions and responsibilities will be entrenched in the Constitution. It will not be possible for Parliament to interfere with those powers. The passing winds within Parliament, wafting to and fro, will not be allowed to diminish the powers of an institution that has a crucial responsibility to discharge at this time with regard to integrity, rectitude in this land. Under the leadership of the Honourable Sajith Premadasa as President, when he assumed office on the 22nd of September, one of the first items on the legislative agenda will be a constitutional amendment which will declare that any interference, any kind of diminishing, lessening of the powers of the Bribery and Corruption Commission cannot be done within Parliament by a two-thirds majority. Even if all the members of Parliament support such a measure, it cannot be done. It will be compulsory to hold a referendum and to obtain the support, the endorsement of the majority of our people.